Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I will be sewing my scoop neck dress pattern. I will be sewing this pattern in a maxi dress with a Lufiru sleeves and lace tape along the neckline. Today we are making the feather sleeve scoop neck version of the dress. Here are some ways to style the scoop neck. They include a strap scoop neck, a simple scoop neck, a feather sleeve scoop neck which I'm making today, and a Lufiru sleeve scoop neck. Note that the pattern has different seam marking depending on the type of scoop neck that you choose. Without further ado, let's get into the materials. For the main fabrics here, I'm using a lightweight chiffon fabrics. Woven fabrics with little to no stretch are recommended for the pattern. For the lining, I also used this lightweight chiffon in pink. Here is the interfacing that I will be using on the neckline to stiffen the fabrics. Here is the lace tape I will be using on the neckline and the shoulder cups to finish the seam. Using lace tape is optional. You can always finish the seam by doing a double fold hem. And here is my invisible zipper. The length of the zipper and the amount of the fabric that you need is detailed in your instruction booklet that came with the pattern. Okay, here I am adding my interfacing tape to the zipper seam. If you don't have a roll of interfacing tape, just cut out some interfacing and in wide and use that. Since we cut the fabrics on bias, this interfacing tape will help prevent ripples from forming on the zipper seam. On the pattern, there are dot marks on the front dress piece. Stitch the dot together. If you are new to sewing, you should trace the dot lines beforehand. After, let's connect the front and the back pieces. With the right size of the dress front and the dress back facing each other, stitch the size of the dress. On the zipper side, only stitch up until the zipper notch. Do this with both the main fabric and the lining fabric. If you want the seam to look cleaner, you can do the front seam, which is what I'm doing in the video. However, if you are short on time, you can just overlock the seam to clean the seams. Here is lining, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Now I'm going to be attaching the zipper to the open seam. If you need instructions on how to do this, a detailed step-by-step is included in your pattern download. Stitch on the zipper any way you would like. I usually like to P-stitch my zippers on first, then stitch them over again close to the zipper teeth. This is how you want to align the lining and the main fabric of your dress. The right size of the main fabric and the lining fabric are facing each other here. I just stitched the zipper onto the main fabric and am now stitching the zipper onto the lining, sandwiching the zipper in between the main fabric and the lining. With the right sides of the main fabric and the lining fabric facing each other, stitch the armhole seam. On the zipper side, don't forget to stitch the armhole on both sides of the zipper. After, cut into the armholes up into the seam to release tensions on the curved armhole. With the wrong size of the lining fabrics and the main fabric facing each other, stitch the top seam on the dress. To lock them together, this will prepare the dress for the neckline pieces. With the right size of the fronts and the back neck pieces facing each other, stitch the end of the neck pieces together. Complete this step twice with the main fabrics. We'll be using the main fabric for the lining as well. Before cutting the neckline pieces, I recommend ironing on the interfacing to the fabrics in order to stiffen the fabric. If you are adding lace, please stitch the lace onto the right size of the inner neckline. We only need to do this once for the outer neck loop. Afterwards, we will connect both neck loops. With the right sides facing each other, align the neck loops and stitch along the inner neckline seam. After stitching, use a scissor to make sewing clips along the neckline curve. This will help the neckline bend better. And then understitch to lock the seam. So while I was sewing, my fabric was shifting a lot, which can lead to an uneven seam. For this next step, I'm going to mark the outer seam of the neckline with the fabric pen to help guide my sewing. Afterwards, please stitch the marked line to help guide the next step. But do not stitch the neck loops together yet. Do this for both neck loops, as this will help prepare the neck loop for the next step. Here I'm using a heat erasable pen that disappears when you iron the fabric. It goes away easily, so I recommend using it for your projects. Using the longest stitch length fitting on your machine, please stitch the neckline. On the inner neck loop, fold over the excess seam and iron it down. We will leave the outer neck loop untouched so we can connect it to the dress later. When I say the inner side of the neck loop, I mean the lining side of the neck loop. The outer side of the neck loop will be the side that is facing out. The piece stitch that we just made should help guide your ironing here. Now we will be padding the shoulder cups. You only need to complete this step if you are adding shoulder cups to your dress and or if you are using lace. If using lace onto the shoulder pieces, stitch the lace onto the outer edge of the shoulder piece. Flip the lace under and top stitch the edge of the shoulder piece to lock the lace into place. Then trim the excess seam on the shoulder piece. And now we will connect the shoulder piece to the neck loop. With the right sides of the main fabric facing each other, align and stitch shoulder pieces to the neck loop. On the neck loop seam, there are notches to help align the shoulder piece. For this step, make sure that you only sew onto the outer neck loop. and do not stitch onto the inner neck loop. The next step is to connect the neckline to the dress. With the right side of the main fabric facing each other, align the outer edge of the neck loop piece with the neckline on the dress and stitch together. Afterwards, cut slits onto the seam in order to help the neckline curve easier. And now we finished the front, so we have to do the same thing for the back too. Afterward, I will press the seam inside to hide the seam. Since scoop neck is the most important part of the dress, it's important to take your time while sewing. After stitching the scoop neck, take your time to iron the neckline seam so the curve of the neckline flows nicely. Make several cuts along the curved seam in order to release tension on the curve. The piece stitching will help make stitching the neckline curve with the machine in the next step easier. The inner side of the neckline is slightly longer than the outward facing side by 1 or 2 mm. Since the inner side of the neckline is slightly longer than the outward facing side, stitching just under the outer neckline seam should catch the inner side of the neckline. Now it's time to stitch along the neckline using the machine in order to close the neckline and connect the neckline to the dress. Stitch as close as possible to the seam edge. Afterwards, remove the piece stitch that we did earlier. We are almost done with this dress. We are going to finish a skirt off by trimming the lining 1 inch so that it's not visible. And now hem the skirt using your preferred hem. Feel free to add lace to the hem as an accent. For this dress, I'll be doing a double fold hem. And we are done with the scoop neck dress. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions while making this dress, leave them down in the comments. See you guys in the next one.